Scanning for audio.
Radio from Arrow.
Welcome to another Hooverville 8 panel. This time it's Katy Manning, Nick Briggs and Michael Jason.
Come on, Katy. Come on.
Oh, really? Seriously?
Seriously. Seriously.
I thought you were on. I was about to sit and just, like, be a nuisance to you.
Now, could I just make a request? It suddenly occurred to me that before this podcast started, and all these things are still blinking away, that Mike Tucker and I were having a really confidential conversation, and you will have recorded it. So could I ask you, please? Okay, please. Yeah. I just suddenly sat down and saw these recordings. I thought, yeah, we were over there. You will have heard of all of that.
Truly, that has happened to me, and it's really good. I have to make sure it's gone.
Sorry, so please don't.
Can I sit with you?
Or if you do, don't attribute it to me.
Disguise your voice.
Yes.
Just Nick who?
Make it sound like a Dalek.
Yeah.
They won't guess.
They'll never know.
It's like an old BBC thing, isn't it? When you'd forget sometimes and you'd be standing on the floor and you'd say something and you suddenly think, that's just gone everywhere.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I used to shock David Tennant when I... because doing the Dalek voices, I had a feed of everyone else's mic,
Yeah.
and they tend to radio mic everyone now as well as have a boom in there. So unless I have a very... we went through a period where there was a sound engineer who would look at me and go and turn the things down. So you can't listen to them, but the guy we've had for a few years now, he just leaves everything up, you know. But and certainly at this particular recording, it was Daleks in Manhattan, and
Like with a New York accent.
and they were be exterminated.
Yeah, exterminate. I just love that idea.
But David was having a conversation with the other members of the cast completely, about 400 yards away from me, in between takes. And I honestly can't remember the actress in question, about whether a certain actress was alive or dead.
How can you tell?
And they were saying, I don't know, is she? I don't know, what was she? And they were like taking votes, you see. And then when that particular bit was over, I wandered over to him and I said, I think she's alive. And he went, what? And I said, I'm listening to everything you're saying. He was like, oh my God, you know. So a weird prospect that the Dalek man.
It does happen though, doesn't it? Working out with certain actors, are they still with us or not? And I find about every 3 days I go through this thing of now, and you're talking about someone, you think, wait a minute, are they still with us?
Yeah.
Just think people are talking about us like that.
I know.
Is she still alive?
Well, I sometimes think that when I'm directing people in the studio.
He said, looking straight at me.
Is she still alive?
My God, how does she do it? It's amazing, really.
You do sometimes have that thing where Toby in the studio will sometimes do something erroneously, technically, and as the director, you're talking away, and the actors actually can't hear you. He's pressed a button or something, and you're talking away, and the actors are sort of in the booth, and you can't hear them, and maybe one of the other actors is talking, and they're nodding, and so you're talking to them, and they seem to be listening. You go, okay, right, well, let's go for that then, and cue, and then nothing happens, and again, and cue, and you think, what is the matter with these people? And then Toby goes, oh, God, sorry. I said, sorry, I've been talking to you all for 15 minutes and you didn't hear
That's right.
any
And
of
then
it.
one person, usually me, says, what page are we on? Right? And he said, well, I've just told... I said, no, you didn't. It was just quiet in here.
Mind you, you do assure me that you've got the pages thing. So.
I have a page from... I have number blindness. I have a lot of blindness, but numbers is specifically, which is why when I wrote, I didn't bother with numbers, darling. It's not necessary. You know, go whatever order you want to go in. That's as writer I am.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I've got to talk to you about that later. Anyway, that's another conversation I need to have with you. But I worked out this incredible, because I thought I cannot be defeated by this, because when you're doing these big scripts that we're doing, you're going to be doing things out of order, so you have to put X amount of pages there and X amount, and then you do 3 pages in the middle there, which to everybody else seems to be perfectly normal. For me, it is a nightmare. It actually causes me to hyperventilate quietly. And so I thought, I'm not going to be beaten by this. You know, this is not it. And because I get away with it sometimes. Anyway, I don't know why, it's whenever I'm with you, it becomes a major disaster. And I thought, I'm not going to let this happen. And I have worked out this. I sat up at night trying to work out how I could do this. I had scripts on the floor working out. No, truly, when I do something, I work it.
I know.
And I have finally worked out it, and it involves lots of bits of coloured paper. That's all I'm prepared to share with you till we meet again.
The pages thing I've discovered, being 54, 55 at the end of this month, it happens at the age of 50, I've discovered, because for any criticism I give you, I'm exactly the same now when I'm behind the
But I've
microphone.
never been able to do it, and I'm 70 now, so I figure it's time to change. In October,
By the way,
the 14th. Just write
note
it
of
down in
that.
your diaries. All gifts gratefully received, thank you. Send them to the home. Matron will make sure I get them. Thank you.
perhaps you'd like to interview...
Oh, hello, there's somebody else here.
Just introduce myself. My name's Simon. I'm on the Blue Box podcast for Starburst magazine. And when I asked...
It's my fault.
I'm so sorry, darling. You should have said something.
I was offered the panels, and I said which ones are free, and I saw this one. I thought, oh yes, brilliant. And they said, yeah, it's fine. Then I realised, yeah, it's because the panel runs itself.
Exactly, yeah.
So I'll see you later.
Although you haven't said anything.
But you're on my
yeah.
peripheries. If you're on the side of me, you don't exist. You have to come up and look at me and let me know
I
that you're
exist on a
there.
quantum level, though.
I know you have got
Just, let's not go there. Firstly, well, I think everyone knows who you are, but if you give a brief introduction from
Yes.
each of you, please.
That was mine. It's very brief.
Brilliant.
I'm... There was in that "Are You Being Served" remake, I thought there was a brilliant joke in there when he
Was
said,
there?
yeah, there was. He said,
There was a couple.
yeah, I quite liked it anyway. I hated the original, so I quite liked.
So did I.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say, isn't it awful? It's blasphemy, isn't it?
I know, but I hate it. I,
I
thought it was
can't
rubbish.
stand
But
all that.
That's why I liked the remake, because anything would be better. But there was a brilliant joke where the guy said, he said, "Have you had any experience in gentleman's retail?" And he said, "Well, do you want the long answer or the short answer?"
yes.
He said, "Just the short answer." He said, "I have." And he went, "Oh, well, that's brilliant. Blah, 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 blah. By the way, what was the long answer?" "I have not had any."
Yes.
And I thought that's a really good joke.
If I'd
Anyway.
stayed for that bit, I would have been all
It
right.
gets better as it goes along, and John Charles
No,
is
I
brilliant
did
in it.
watch some of it, but I just find it all very difficult. I think classics of that nature
I
are
will do what you want in a minute.
still there. Sorry, answer. That was
Hello, I'm Nick Briggs. I am co-executive producer of Big Finish Productions and the voice of the Daleks and other monsters.
Thank you.
I'm trying to remember.
How are you today?
I don't know. Who do I want to be today?
You can be who you like. We don't mind.
I'd like to
don't let
be-
the monsters out.
I want to be Florence Naismith. That's who I'm going to be today for at least 3 minutes. And when I'm fed up with being Florence because she's an absolute pain in the bottom, the woman, I'm going to be Katy Manning. But I don't quite know who she is.
Joe?
Joe, is that you, Joe? so occasionally I'll be the doctor. And they up Chuck and all that that goes with it. I don't know really who I am. But actually I'm Katy Manning and I'm very thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Have you finished?
Do you need to lie down now and a Valium?
I do, yes.
And I'm Richard Bignell. I edit Nothing at the End of the Lane. Written for Doctor Who magazine and did an awful lot of work on the DVD range when it was still going.
now sadly defunct.
Did you do some of the texts at the
I
bottom?
did production subtitles. I did research.
I love those. I love the subtitles.
Oh, what
So
a
do I.
stink to write though.
Are they really?
That must be like working for CFAX. People remember CFAX.
It was honestly one of those jobs that you think would be easy, and it's a nightmare.
No, I wouldn't have thought it'd be easy at all.
No.
And Andrew's not in today. He was here earlier on. Andrew Pixley, who we all know and love from doing the archives, did one, Delta and the Bannermen, and said, not doing that again, because he found it impossible to do. You are writing to time codes, so you are writing to 24ths of a second. You have to fit everything in, and you're given stories that you sometimes go, no, please.
But you can find stuff out. You can research stuff
But
yourself.
boy, you can find stuff out. Yeah, and that's the really fascinating bit. You go along and you're able to dig stuff out that, you know. The very first one I did was the War Machines. So you go along to the BBC's Written Archive Centre, have a look through the production paperwork if it exists, and there's a letter in there from a mum of a young boy who was invited along to Lime Grove Studios at the time to watch the filming for a day, and I managed to track him down. He's now a doctor himself, but yeah, had some really lovely memories of just sort of being there, and William Hartnell feeding him McVitie's fruitcake in the restaurant, and you know, but you're able to dig out lots of really interesting little bits of information.
Wow, yeah.
And it was nice actually that I don't know if anyone's seen, but there's a website called Dalek 6388.
Oh yes, I have.
And it logs all things Dalek. And a few weeks ago, someone wrote to them, and they own the model that Shawcraft made the 1 foot model of the Dalek that was used in the end of the first episode of The Chase, where it comes up through the sand, comes up through the sand dune. And there's pictures of it on their website. You can go and have a look. And you know, that's one of the things that I was trying to research when I did the subtitles for The Chase, because in the frame many years ago, 25 years ago or so,
that was a fanzine.
Yeah, the fanzine. Yeah, Ray Cusick did an interview, and he happened to mention, I was in the Toy Museum in Brighton one day, and I saw this thing sitting there in an exhibition. And of course, we tried to find it then. It turned out it wasn't quite a toy museum; it was a doll museum. That there is a toy museum in Brighton, but that came along later, which sort of rather confused things. But it's turned up now, and it's a gorgeous model, absolutely gorgeous model.
So it's like a detective story in a way, finding out all this stuff.
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, absolutely.
Amazing.
Because I imagine you have obvious entry points. You have, obviously War Machines, Post Office Tower. Let's look up some stuff on Post Office Tower and see what relates to it.
Yeah, I was saying earlier on when I was talking with David Howe. You know, when you go to research anything, you go down the obvious routes first of all. So you go to all your primary research material and interviews that people have done in the past, and you look through all that, and then you start having to go off tangentially, you know, and start thinking laterally about things.
I love that word, tangential.
Write it down.
And you go down finding other routes and exploring other routes, you know, and there's lovely little bits and pieces that you can pick out. I was doing one of the last ones I did was for the Green Death, for the reissue of that, and we got to the bit where they're all sitting around having the dinner party, and there's a line. Hello, yes, you remember the Green Death?
No,
Maggots.
that's the short answer.
And they're all sitting around having the dinner party, and there's a line about someone Jessie tootling along on her flute.
Yes.
And I can't for the life of me remember her name,
doesn't it?
But I thought, I wonder if she's still around. And I'm literally sitting there writing it, looked her up on the internet, found her, got in contact with her that morning, and she regaled me with all these stories coming back that she'd been in the East Tower of the BBC, and Barry Letts had happened to be wandering around, and she was just doing something because she'd been on Top of the Pops or something,
Tootling her
and
flute.
Tootling her flute. Barry had seen her, got her in because she
70s.
thought it should be good for the background, and she remembered. I can't remember if she said she did it or if you did it, Katy. But they had a fish tank, full of real maggots in the studio
Yeah.
for when they're doing the model work, and someone knocked them over. So they went everywhere, but of course they couldn't gather them all up. So
We
subsequently
tried.
they turn into flies, and there's flies all over the studio.
Oh, how lovely.
So, yeah, but it's
I
it's
wasn't
great
knocking.
fun
They
because-
weren't knocked out. I was setting them free.
Oh, well, yeah. Liberation for flies.
Sorry, but I thought this was, it was terrible to see them all so overcrowded.
Sure, I can't believe how the time is flying along. I'm going to get one question in, and then I'll open up to everyone
Okay.
else.
Yep.
But what I was going to ask
The
is,
question is, will you shut up?
yeah. We recently did a podcast which is a discussion about being a fan, and we found the most interesting thing is defining that point when you stop just liking something like Doctor Who, and then actually becoming what someone might call a fan.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a point you remember thinking, "Oh, do you know, I'm a
I
fan"?
have to say, I'm not a fan
No, I
as
can
such.
imagine.
I grew up with a lot of wonderful television, and one of the most amazing things that I grew up that was like, wow, loving this, was indeed, the very early days, in fact, the beginning of Doctor Who.
I mean, were you a fan of anything in particular? Is there something you would call yourself a fan?
I think fandom goes one step beyond where I go. I have massive admiration. I love watching different actors. I loved it when special effects, and things like Doctor Who and Quatermass and all that kind of stuff. And so it's very hard for me because I'm not a fan, but I watch all the new Doctor Who stuff and I absolutely love it. But what I do love is I love fans because I love whatever it is that has brought them into this situation, and everybody has the most amazing story to go with it, and it just makes me so happy. I think it's always very obvious that I just love being at these things because I love the fans. I love who they are. I love what it is that they've found.
For me, I think the point of where I felt...
I'm a fan of yours.
Thanks, my darling.
And yours.
I'm a huge fan of yours.
I'm a huge fan of both of you.
So I'm a huger fan of
No,
you.
I'm bigger than you.
I'm more huge. That's my new
You'll
name.
never be bigger than me.
I'm working on it. Sorry.
That point where for me, I think as a youngster, where it tipped over from just liking it, because I liked Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Tarzan, Thunderbird,
Bilko.
all those things I really loved and had toys,
Yeah.
but I could miss them.
Yeah.
Yes.
But with Doctor Who, of course, you as we oldsters always say, you couldn't record it in those days, except maybe if you put a tape recorder with the side of the
And you had
television.
to
which I
wait a
did.
week, which was exciting.
So my experience of thinking, I really do love this program, is because my parents, were constantly trying to break me of Doctor Who. They thought it's
You're in
just
Doctor
even,
Who
even
rehab.
now. Even now, my mum is a bit sort of. She's saying, and I say, I'm doing something on whenever. And she goes, oh, what is it? And I go, Doctor Who, and she goes, oh, okay. Yeah. But if I say, oh, I'm recording an episode of Dan Dead, she goes, oh, that sounds very exciting because it's not Doctor Bloody Who, as it was called in our household. Doctor Bloody Who. The Return of the Bloody Daleks, my brother used to say. Oh, what's it called this week? The Return, and it was all that. So they used to sort of take me out for the day on a Saturday, and then not. I was thinking we won't get home in time, and I used to get into such a state that they'd just take me. And from then on, they knew they just couldn't. Because it would upset me so much not to see Doctor Who. And that's when I realised, I think, that I'm a Doctor Who fan. It means so much to me that I cannot miss it. And even now, I don't always watch Doctor Who when it goes out live now. But when it's going out and I'm not watching it, I'm a bit sort of...
But it's better
A bit like an
watching it
alcoholic who
live.
hears the pub opening next door. You know what I mean? It's kind of, could do with a pint now, I could do
But
with a
don't
bit
you
of
find it's
Doctor Who
better
now.
live? Like that when I say live, when it actually goes out rather
Yes,
than
but quite often it's not possible.
assume the position. I always say at that particular time. Just one little thing I say before.
I understand you so much more now.
Thank you, darling.
Was that I had the problem that my father was on radio when Doctor Who was being shown, so there was a huge thing in our house of whether the telly was louder or Daddy on the radio.
Oh, wow, yeah.
You know, what can I... So that wasn't easy. Sport 1, I'm afraid. And there was me trying to watch Doctor Who.
Well, we had problems when my father suddenly decided he liked that series Kung Fu. Do you remember that?
Oh, with Keith Carradine.
Yeah.
Was it Keith Carradine?
Yeah, I think about it.
It was a Carradine.
Carradine.
It was
David
David who used
That's
to
it.
think,
I was close, that was his father.
Yeah. Well, ITV decided to try and beat Doctor Who with it. Needless to say, they didn't. But so we had to buy a portable television, which in those days, having 2 televisions in the house, especially we were not a rich family. I had to. So it was upstairs. Also, during the power cuts, of the 70s. We had the portable television wired up to a battery upstairs, a car battery, just in case the power went. So it would be up there ready. So I'd dash up and turn the. Anyway, you.
Oh, for me. Well, for me, the turning point was between in 1975 between Seeds of Doom episode 6 and Mask of Mandragora episode 1, because it was then that I got the very first Doctor Who monster book that Terence Dix did, and I vividly remember the large, I don't know if you remember, that had a large photograph of Davros in it, Davros's head, which gave me nightmares. And I know that's when it tipped me over to being the fan, because Mask of Mandragora 1 was the first time I bought a copy of the Radio Times purely so that I could cut out the cast list.
Oh yeah, we've all been.
And once that happened, there really was no going back.
Well, let me just say, by the way, going before the whole missing it thing, I remember watching the last episode of Patrick Troughton's Doctor Who, the War Games, the last episode of that. And of course, I was very young. I would have been 8 or 9 or something like that. And there was no advance publicity that I was aware of. And I watched it not knowing how it was going to end. And when it ended like that, with Patrick Troughton spinning off into the distance, and his friends never knowing who he was, really, never having had event, they blotted out their memories and sent them back. I'm explaining for you, Dan.
No, I saw it.
Oh, yeah. Well, because I know everyone else in the room knows why I'm.
I did actually see it.
Oh, bless you. I just looked at the television, and my mum came in and said, "What's the matter with you?" And I said, I think Doctor Who's just died, and it ripped my heart out, And I think my mum thought, God, he's serious about this, isn't he? It's ridiculous, isn't it? I'm slightly tearful to remember it. Yeah.
But
it's just some 25 minutes load of nonsense with. Monsters lumbering around in silly costumes, and yet you invest so much in it, and I don't know. I can't explain it to anyone why we get like this about Doctor Who. And I suppose the older you get, and the more it reminds you of simpler times when life seemed.
Exactly, that's what I think.
The nostalgia for it for me is immense. Particularly, I've been watching a lot of your stuff recently, not just because I'm writing for you, but because I love it, and my son particularly loves it. Loves watching the Sea Devils and Planet of the Daleks.
I thought it was. It sort of, there was something so comforting about Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I mean, this is spoken somebody that watched it, not somebody that was this sort of massive fan. But I always found it, and also because it opened doors to me in terms of creativity, if you know what I mean, which I hadn't been exposed to before on television. And I found that really lovely. And of course, doing it, was... especially in that time when it wasn't what it is now. There was something so lovely about being involved in this sort of, and it was this incredible warm, cuddly feeling going to work, and these great stories, and playing a character that actually grew up. It was lovely, not just coming in and doing something, but actually being able to play a character that over time was changing. And it was a lovely feeling. And then you suddenly realise that when you mentioned that you were in Doctor Who, you could see even people who kind of weren't Doctor Who fans going, "Oh wow, how terrific!" Because it became quite cool and trendy, and I was kind of considered to be like a really trendy hip chick to be in Doctor Who.
You were.
And back in the 70s, honey, being a groovy, trendy hip chick was kind of nice.
Should we cram a couple of questions in from the audience? Anyone
Look
with
at
a
his
question?
watch up there.
Yeah.
So I will need Katy in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, what?
He'll need you in 5 minutes.
No, you
Anyway,
won't. Trust me, you won't.
Quick questions. quick.
Quick.
Nothing.
Any questions? Well, shall I use another one from my list?
Should we do the long and the short answers?
Yes.
Without the
I
question.
have.
In your life,
Not ever. Yeah.
what is the most important thing that The Who has given you? Don't say a job.
Life.
Tricky one. Anyone with an
Yeah,
answer?
stories.
Yeah.
Not just because it's the Big Finish slogan, we love stories. But yeah, stories. We are stories, aren't we? I mean, I know this has been said in Doctor Who, written by Steve, Stephen Moffat. We're all stories. We make stories all the time. We make narratives about everything that happens in our life, whether it's just how the car broke down, how your favourite thing in the supermarket wasn't in stock, when you went shopping. We all have stories, and Doctor Who, for me, defined my understanding of stories, and still does, which is why when I got an opportunity to write for the bill, I couldn't. I just thought, this isn't Doctor Who. I'm
The
not
thought
interested.
of writing for Doctor Who and then the bill, I mean, I know who I'd write for.
I think it gives you undoubtedly a sense of fun as well.
What?
Which,
Sorry.
it's not fun for you, Nick.
Hard work.
We do it because we enjoy it.
Yes.
All of this we do because we enjoy it. Whatever field it is, we do it because we're getting something out of it. It's. I mean, it's a bit of a downer to sort of say what a nasty, horrible, bleak world this can be, but it is. And it really stinks sometimes. So it's lovely to have something that you can latch onto and just love it with a passion.
Yeah.
Just love it and enjoy it for what it is. And we know that it's creaky at the seams, and
Doesn't matter.
you see the nail sticking out the wall, and you see nails sticking out of Katy, and But,
Sorry about that.
But we love it for what it is, And I think
You've actually said it there. I think it's that thing. This to me is true entertainment.
Yes.
This is what takes us from, especially now with the way that we have all the different medias and social medias and so on. And the world just seems to become more and more dreadful because you're seeing it through more and more negative eyes. And the wonderful thing to be able to look at Doctor Who when I watch it when it comes back on now is for that moment in time. I guess that's why I love acting too, is that you are absolutely out of all that. You're in a wonderful world of make-believe, and all you have to do is bring the heart to it. The writers give you the words, the direct, and it's just, thank goodness, that we have this that's gone on from Doctor Who, from where it was to what it is now. And I think Big Finish has been a massive part of that.
Something that a lot of fans, particularly Americans, because they may be a bit more forthcoming emotionally, and also you're over there for a brief period and they feel they've got to grab you and tell you everything. They feel that the Big Finish stuff and Doctor Who in general has sort of saved them from emotional crises in their life, and I recognise that. I've had bad times in my life where things have been awful, and Doctor Who rescues me because I can go and put a video on or a DVD, as it ended up being. But you know what I mean?
That's
it really
what I find.
Puts you back in a really secure
place.
place.
That's been since way back in my time.
Yeah.
When we started, especially when it got bigger and bigger and bigger, but even before, anybody who saw it, 9 times out of 10 had a story of how it had rescued them, either from a terribly traumatic home life or various illnesses and things like that. And that's why I think it's really important for us to honour and respect the fans, because there's a lot of people there that have it's been a hugely important thing in their lives, and I think that that's something that we need to really respect and look after and nurture, and that's why I take so long to do the signing. But no, but it's true. I think that is vital. I think that everybody has an incredible story to tell, and Doctor Who has changed so many lives because I've listened to the stories, like you're saying. It's not just in America; it's very clearly here.
Oh yes.
And I think I think that's a hell of a blessing in a job that we've been given.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
That's extra gift.
Has that inspired any questions for anyone?
One.
Where's the loo?
Yes.
What's your story?
Nick, when you did the, talking as a fan, can you describe if there was a real sense of vindication doing the Lost Stories of getting back a piece of Doctor Who history?
Well, funnily enough, to be controversial, the Lost Stories idea had been put to me years before, I think by Clayton Hickman, who was editor of Doctor Who magazine. I just said, I'm not interested. I really wasn't interested. I said, these are bits of Doctor Who, this is very controversial, these are bits of Doctor Who that for one reason or another were rejected and passed over. And I said, and I'm not interested in going back to that. I want to do new and exciting things. However, David Richardson came along and said, I'd really like to do it. I said, well, if you really want to do it, then you do it. That's fine. And of course, it has, I was wrong about it. It's exactly done the thing that you were alluding to, which is like, these were things that could have been on the television. And I think that gives people a thrill. But yeah, I can see why I thought what I thought. As it turned out, I wasn't right. But it's a question of how far you go. I mean, there was one that Christopher Bidmead wrote that he said that he had it, but he said, I found some more up in the loft. We think you're just writing this now, actually. But,
I'm sure there must be quite a few that come your way. I just happened to find this in the sock.
It's a 12-part story, mostly starring me.
It was worth it purely for doing Farewell Great Macedon.
Yeah.
Having the chance to finally put that out has been a real blessing, I think.
And to see a glimpse of Doctor Who from it's a different kind of Doctor Who. It's not quite the series we know, is it? It's sort of it's interesting.
No, that's lovely.
Jenny.
I want to know, just a really simple question. What one scene scared you to death when you were little?
Oh.
Have you got any one scene?
I didn't hear that. One scene that scared you when you were little?
Really simple question.
I really, the Silurian plague really upset me as a child. Right. That predated you, my dear. But I used to lie in bed at night, and it was the scene where Peter Miles came in and was infected by it and going crazy, which is just horrific, isn't it?
I was like that with the Seeds of Doom, with the transformation.
Oh, yeah, I could imagine. I was a teenager by then, so nothing was scaring me. But I used to lie in bed and feel for the scabs, because I used to think maybe I've caught it through watching it.
That's reminded me. Remember the Martian Chronicles when that was on television and the Martians had no ears?
That's right.
And I'd go to bed at night with my hands over my ears in case they stole my ears.
Wow.
I was quite old
when William Hartnell first came onto the scene, because but I do remember very clearly watching William Hartnell in it right from the
I remember
get-go.
William Hartnell as well, yeah.
I'm absolutely with you. The Seeds of Doom was the last one that genuinely scared me. When I was young, I used to sit there behind a cushion watching the programme. That was the last one that I did that. Absolutely petrified. And then I had to go to a friend of mine, Deborah's party, on part 6, and I had to miss part 6. So the final part of the story.
Damn Deborah.
Damn Deborah. So I had to get my mum to sit there and watch it so that she could relate everything back to me.
How sweet.
So it absolutely petrified me, but at the same time, I wasn't going to miss it. I was going to find a way. It was a year or two later that I started pressing the tape recorder and recording it for myself. But Yeah, that was the last one that Jim.
I found
Jim
a couple in the new ones where I truly, it's so silly, isn't it? But
Blink did it for me as
I've
well.
actually found myself,
Yeah.
because I always say it has to be the right thing, assume the position on the sofa in front of the telly, right? And suddenly I find myself thinking, I now understand why people say I used to watch you from behind the sofa, because I can't look. And isn't that lovely that I can still be affected by something like that,
Yeah. Unfortunately,
I know,
I'm afraid Cornwall to say cinema back. Please.
Right, okay. We'll bring that to a close.
We've outstayed the cinema.
We'll suddenly get a film projected in our faces.
And we'll still be going.
It's going to be like bathroom.
Thank you very much.
Nice time machine. We'll come down around us and go.
That's the most unruly panel.
That was the Doctor Who Tin Dog Podcast, available on iTunes, YouTube, Twitter, RSS, Vimeo, and across the internet. Doctor Who and its associated properties are all copyright and trademark of the BBC. No infringement is intended. Why not become a supporter by visiting patreon.com/tindog. Contact the show on tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk. The Tin Dog Podcast is a founder member of the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance.